And welcome to another week of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. Today is Monday's edition. That means you got me, Paul Dottino, and former Giants linebacker Jonathan Casillas, former Super Bowl linebacker too, I got to add in there.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we like to call you a Giants linebacker because we know you're once a Giant, always a Giant, but can't ignore those Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. You know what? What kind of bothers me too, that when people don't really know the story of Jonathan Casillas, they say, "Oh yeah, you won one with the Giants." I was like, reluctantly not.
You wish so.
With
you wish.
What? I wish it would have been number 3 for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That would have been number 3. So, but look, I'm a proud Giant. I still wear it. I was career day today at Lincoln School in New Brunswick. You know, I'm talking about the Giants days.
Okay.
Right? And I'm talking about the Giants
Very
days.
cool. Well, that's why we're so glad to have you here again today. Next hour, we're going to talk Giants football, maybe a couple NFL things, whatever you folks like, because today I really want to make this a caller-intensive show. A lot of times we come in, we have a theme, we go 20 minutes, a half hour, and we don't get to a lot of calls. And I know Giants fans out there, you got a lot to say. I know you're very vocal, you're very into it. Well, tomorrow, 2-day minicamp, veteran mandatory minicamp starts tomorrow. That's a big deal. It's the next step on the way to the toll plaza that gets you to the regular season. So I really want to give you guys a chance to own this show. 201-939-4513. Now, I will tell you, because we've got staffing issues today, I'm going to ask you when we pot you up, give me your name, where you're calling from, and we're going to let you rock and roll. All right, because I got to have to run the board today. We don't have that extra pair of hands to run the phones. So we do ask that you kindly do that. Again, your name, where you're from, and just rock and roll, and we'll do it with you. 201-939-4513 is our phone number here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. And we need to remind you that if you do not catch this show live, you can always catch it on the Giants Archive and all of your favorite podcast platforms everywhere, as well as the Giants mobile app. And you can go to giants.com/podcasts. And don't forget, the Giants Huddle is also another one of those great podcasts that's part of the Giants podcast platforms. You can get all kinds of interviews there with some folks that you played with, or maybe even before you played, coaches and experts, all kinds of good stuff there on the Huddle. Don't forget to leave a positive response. And you can get your Giants season membership, taking your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. You can connect to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more about exclusive memberships, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And finally, Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. I get that out of the way earlier today because we want to make this a caller-intensive program. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Jonathan, let me ask you, just to kick things off, as a veteran, what does veteran minicamp mean to you besides being mandatory? Because if you're not here, you get fined.
Yeah. Well, I see it as a time where you're just like sharpening those tools, man, sharpening those knives, you know, like getting everything tight. You know, it's half football. It's not real football because, of course, it's not live. You're not tackling nobody. Very limited contact. Some contact, but very, very, very limited. You know, but it's sharpening those tools, you know, making sure you got a great grasp of the defense, figuring out that chemistry between, you know, I'm talking about defense, of course, figuring out the chemistry between your teammates. Some guys are new. Some guys are new to the NFL. You got rookies in here for the first time that are, you know, taking NFL snaps, you know, and this is a good time where you're just gelling. You know, figuring out who works with what, who's good at what, who does what well, you know, and this is all skills. We're not talking about any physicality and any type of a contact that will be made in training camp as soon as they put that first day of pads on, you know, but it's good. Like I said, sharpening those tools, making sure you understand the defense, and then, you know, finishing this offseason program with a bang.
I've been telling people now, and I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but not with you, Jonathan. There are 3 things that you have to worry about in terms of being on the football field: alignment, assignment, and execution. Those are the 3 things you have to have in order for a play to work. Any one of those 3 things goes wrong, and the play can bust and break down. These all OTAs and basically the mandatory minicamp is about assignment and alignment. Execution, not so much, because you can't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, if you're executing the call the right way to start the play. Usually, like that's okay. You're still getting plus or minus per play here.
Yes,
but of course you got
they tape everything.
Right,
they tape every play.
You got to get the call. You got to get the right alignment. You have to have the right stance. You got to know your key. You got to know your assignment. And you got to be able to execute, like you said, on the play. So maybe not the finishing of the tackling aspect,
the physical
of the game,
part of the execution is missing.
This is a mental part of the season. This is a mental part of the year. Excuse me. That you really got to take it above and beyond and start learning a little more than just the X's and O's. Start learning, how guys are leaning. The type of speed that you're going to feel come August and September, that's get exhibited now. Like Darren Waller's not going to be slower with pads on. That's Darren Waller. That's the speed that you got to play with when he's running that seam route. And those are good, indications that you kind of get a feeling of at this time period. And then, like I said, in August and September, it's a whole nother ballgame when you put those pads on.
All right, folks, it's 201-939-4513. Now, let me warn you, because we don't have the ability to pop you on hold with another set of hands here during the show, when you call up, just let it ring. I will try to get through the calls as quickly as we can, and we'll go right down the line, and I'll punch you right up, and you'll be part of the program. So please, if you get a ring, understand it's going to ring. Don't get frustrated. It means that you're actually in the system, and you're going to be one of the people that's going to be getting pretty close to getting on the air. So we're not going to be able to put you on hold today. All right, 201-939-4513. One thing I did want to mention, and I think it's important to note this. The Giants are going to have, I guess by the time they get done with these 2-day mini camps, they're going to have about 6 weeks or so of off time, summer vacation as we call it, until the players have to report back. Now, you're not going to be on until next week, so it'll be kind of late to talk about that because I want to mention it now. And we'll get to your phone calls in just a second. I do want to get Jonathan's answer on this. How have things changed over the years from even the time when you played till now, where everybody gets that warning sign about minding your P's and Q's? Because during that 6-week time period, the coach does not want to get a bad phone call. Yeah, that's a bad deal.
Yeah, I mean, because look, your season is on the horizon. It's so close. 6 weeks seem like a long time, but it's not. Especially when you don't have mandatory or voluntary stuff to go to, and you're on your own. A lot of guys take
surprises are bad.
A lot of guys take some time off. Which I would definitely recommend. Not too much. But definitely get away. You've been in this building, in and out for the last, 8 weeks or whatever the case was, however long the off-season program is. And now it's like you got time to be with your family. There's a lot of weddings going on in June and July. Take that vacation with your family and your kids if you need to. Because when you come back for training camp in late July, you're locked into the end of the season.
That's it.
You can't do anything. And you do have a bye week. But
it's a marathon.
You can't even depend on that because if you got an ailment, you got something going on, you're going to be in town for that bye week, right? So it's a great time to get away from ball, but at the same time, now you get to train on your own without, the team around you.
Right.
And you get to train yourself to get ready for training camp. Because training camp, it's not the same as it used to be, but it's still a gruesome thing. You got 14-hour days, morning in, sometimes gruesome. It's
wow.
rough. The practices are hard. And
you should have been around when Parcells ran 3 a days.
You go from, I had 2 a days. For these guys, it's gruesome. For me, it'd be a walk in the park.
I got you. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we got that right. All right. Here we go. You're first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Tom from Stratford.
Well, good to have you.
Tom.
Hello.
Hi, guys. Listen, 2 quick questions. Paul, are you going to be able to see who lines up with the first team O-line tomorrow? And Jonathan, when does CBA expire?
All right. Thank you so much for the phone call. Appreciate it. All right. Number one, are we going to see the offensive line, first team offensive line tomorrow? Look, however they put the players out there this week does not necessarily carry any weight as to what they're going to do week 1 when they open the season. Jonathan can tell you that as well. We'll get to the rest of your calls in a minute. I see somebody's ringing us. Hold on. We're going to get to you, but we want to answer this question first. This is a matter of coaches are putting guys out there. They're testing their mental capabilities out. They're seeing if they can do the alignment and the assignment and the mental execution. they're kind of toying with things. So that's why, to be frank with you, you will not see me report on lineups coming out of OTAs or minicamps because it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It really doesn't. It's not much. Now, is it important that Nick McLeod during the media session of the OTAs last week was working a bunch at safety? That could be interesting because maybe it means he's potentially in the mix there at some point. But in terms of starting lineups, heck, Belton and Pinnock went through injuries last year. That's one of the reasons why McLeod's probably out there at safety, is because they got guys slow coming back off last season's injuries.
Yeah.
So don't read anything. I know the writers love to write lineups at this time of the year. They love it. They need those clicks. It doesn't really mean a hill of beans. Second question I will give to you, John.
Yeah, and to touch on that first question a little bit, you won't know it basically until week 1. Because even preseason, it doesn't really matter. Right. It's not a true indicator week 1 of preseason, week 2, week 3, or week 4, especially week 4 when they're just basically playing a lot of reserves, but it's going to be decided the week of the first game. I mean, they might have an indication of who's going to be a starter, but the lineup is not a true indicator of that because they might have the starters in their head, but who they put out there, the great thing about preseason football is, which is a preseason, the great thing about that is you're still testing the guys.
Right.
You're still putting through the test. You still want to see, what works for the group that you have out there. So they're still figuring that out. So we won't know literally until September when the Giants suit up to host the Dallas Cowboys that week 1 game. And then the second question, I just had to look it up because I wasn't sure.
Okay.
But as of right now, it looks like the CBA expires in March of 2030.
Yeah.
So we got another 7 years under this thing.
I mean, it is what it is. At some point, there'll be more changes to it, I'm sure. In fact, it wouldn't shock me if we go to 18 games before then. I bet you they open it up and they redo it and they go down to 2 preseason games and they go up to 18 regular season games.
I don't mind that as long as they're compensating the players accordingly. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
I think that's going to happen. I really do. 201-939-4513. Phone lines are open if you want to get in here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Again, this is mandatory minicamp week, so that means 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. The guys will have their full minicamp drills. Today's a big marketing day. I'm going to let you in behind the curtain a little bit. Today's a big marketing day. This is where the networks come in, ESPN, Fox, NBC, CBS. The networks come in, Amazon, of course, now I keep forgetting they're one of them too. And they come in and they're taking all the headshots. When you see the game and they tell you the starting lineups at the beginning of the game, where do you think they get those headshots from? And they get those little glitzy things you see on the scoreboard. This is the day when they do all that stuff. They didn't do much of that when you were playing.
I mean, it's a different game now, man. Like you said, Amazon's involved now. Amazon wasn't involved back when I was playing.
Hold that story because I want to get this
Get them in.
All right? Hello, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Marty from Manahawkin.
Hello, Marty.
What's up, Marty?
All right, how you guys doing?
We're well. Thanks for calling us.
Thank you.
Hey, I've been reading some of these articles about Saquon and it possibly holding out. How much do you think this might be a product of his representation actually misreading the running back market?
Well, Marty, do you want to hold or you want to go away and we'll answer the question? How do you want to do it?
We could do that, Paul. I could hang up.
Okay, no problem. I appreciate it. Another phone call is on the line, so we'll get to him in a second. Let's talk about Saquon for just a minute here. It seems to me, Jonathan, and we've been telling people this since the middle of last season. I don't know if you were doing any of those shows when I started talking about this. Jones would get the long-term deal at the very deadline. The Giants would then slap the tag on Saquon. This is exactly as it happened. Mm-hmm. This was as predicted. Barkley has till July 17th to sign the multi-year deal. I still think that's going to happen, probably July 17th.
Yep.
If it does not for any reason, I predict he will sign the one-year tag a week before opening day, come in and get a couple of practices, and he will be in the lineup opening day for the New York Football Giants. I have never wavered in that. Nothing that you hear now I know the papers need to write about it. I know there's posturing and there's comments that he has to make on his behalf. His camp is telling him he's got to make. I get all of that stuff. You know what that is? That's that big jumble of wires behind your television set. It's that big jumble of wires that's nothing but a confusing mess. And ultimately, in the end, it all comes down to undoing the wires, plugging it in, and the TV will work.
I like that.
This is just a waste of time, energy, and emotion to be following the ebb and flow of this thing, because we all know how it's going to end up with week one. Agree or disagree?
I agree with you, but not 100%. And the reason why, I think, because if they can't work out a deal, like, I think there's a small chance they won't work out a deal. There's a small chance.
The long term.
The long term
Okay.
deal, not the 1 year
tag
tag.
is- the tag is the tag.
The tag's the tag. I think if they don't work out a deal, I think it would increase the chances of Saquon actually not playing this year. I think he's considering that, because you got to think about it too. These are not these younger guys. They're not like me, and I'm not even old school. You got guys that are a lot old school than me. It's a little bit more logic behind it, less feelings involved. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a little more feelings involved now, and I think Saquon feels some type of way about not getting that deal done already at this point. And I feel like I know he wants a deal. I know the Giants want a deal. And I believe if he doesn't get a deal done, I think he's not going to feel respected. I don't think he's going to feel appreciated by the Giants. And I think that increases his chances for sitting out. I think right now, because of the likeliness of him getting a deal, I think it's very high. But if that slight chance of him not getting that deal doesn't work, and he doesn't get a deal, I think we can possibly see Saquon not playing football in 2023 for any team. I think that's very small chance, but I don't think it's not existent, Paul. I don't think it's a non-existent chance.
Okay.
I think that's a small chance of happening.
I say it's non-existent, but I'll go with you saying that's a small one. I'll play along for a minute here. I will counter and say the guy's been in the league for 5 years. He's had better part of 2 years where he was hurt. He wants to be known as one of the greats. If he misses a year at this stage of his career, he is potentially not only costing himself the minimum of $10.1 million on the tag.
Would it be guaranteed?
Which, by the way, he's not going to get that money back. If he sits out, he does not get paid.
Yep.
So he's $10 million in the hole if he sits out. And then on top of that, another year goes by during which he will lose that productivity. That's another 1,000+ yard season. I still think Saquon Barkley has the potential to be a 10,000-yard running back before he's done.
Oh, yeah.
I
if he can
believe
stay
that.
healthy, that's a check box already.
I believe that.
For sure.
And so consequently, when you hear Barkley talk about he does want to be considered one of the greats, I think the Hall of Fame is important to him. I think he knows he has the ability and the talent. And I think he understands that compiling those numbers and showing some durability on the second half of his career is paramount to him putting his name in Canton. By missing a year, by sitting out on a year, he is significantly jeopardizing that possibility.
Yeah, I don't think
he wants to do it.
I agree. I don't think it's helping him. I don't think that'd be a good thing for him to do, to miss a year, because he's young, but he's not young at that position, right?
Correct.
There are different ages where, like, you're old at quarterback at 35 at quarterback. You're old at running back at 25, 26. Same thing with linebacker, 26,
There's an
27.
expiration date on the position, is what you're saying.
You're old at 27, 28 at linebacker, So Saquon right now, he's like a middle-aged running back. And he's still young, very young. But right now, he's a middle-aged running back. If not, he's kind of getting into the older category, because that's just how that position is regarded nowadays, But I just think there's something into the human aspect of it, and it's not just straight business. I think it has a lot to do with relationships. And Saquon, and things I've been hearing and what I've read, and the temperature that I've been feeling, from him, I think, like I said, he could have made money on an open market. If he would have got to the open market, I think somebody would have paid him more of what he was looking for. Maybe not exactly what he was looking for, but I know there was an offer out there for an average of about $14 million a year from the New York Giants, and that didn't happen.
Right.
So if if they would have got a deal done, we would have never been having this conversation. But because they didn't get a deal done with, I think, numbers that are respectable for that position, that's why I think it's not a 0% chance that Saquon doesn't play. I think it has a slight chance. And look, I'm pushing for him to play. I'm pushing for him to get a deal. And if they don't get a deal, I'm pushing for him to go ahead and play under that franchise tag. But I don't think you could call it a 0% chance of Saquon not playing this year. I just think that I don't think the guy's bluffing. I don't think so. I think he's a guy who's a very high character guy, and I think he understands his value. And I believe that if he doesn't get a deal done with the Giants, I think he's going to feel spited. And I think he's going to feel slighted, I think he's going to feel slighted. And then he might be spiteful. There you go. He might feel slighted and might be spiteful. I don't know. This is all presumptions, of course, but I think you can't take away that human aspect of feeling some type of way, especially when you sacrifice so much for an organization, when you sacrifice so much in your ability to actually play the game of football.
Well, now, let's just say for argument's sake, and I'm gonna just throw, again, folks, this has nothing to do with the negotiations going on between Barkley and the Giants. But let's just say 10,000 yards is the magic number, which it is for most running backs. That's the number. I know Otis Anderson is not in the Hall of Fame, God knows why, but 10,000 is the magic number where you start getting serious consideration. So Barkley right now has over 4,200 rushing yards in his career, okay? So he needs 5,800 rushing yards to eclipse the 10,000 mark, okay? Let's just say, for argument's sake, he gets a 4-year deal, okay? Well, as it stands now, 4 years at 5,800, and I'm gonna do the calculator here because I'm not that quick with my math. That says he's got to go for 1,400 yards, 1,400 yards a year for the next 4 years to get there. Now, if he sits out a season, now he's a year older, he's coming off a layoff, and he'll only have, who knows, maybe the next deal he gets is only a 1-year deal because he will have sat out. Now, all of a sudden, guess what?
That puts that in jeopardy.
That puts
Big
that
time.
in serious jeopardy. 10,000 could potentially, I'm not going to say it's going to be out of reach, but it's going to be a real tall mountain to climb for him if he loses a year of his career at this stage of his life.
Yeah, and you don't expect him to play 15 years at that position.
Not everybody's Emmitt Smith.
Right.
Or Frank Gore.
Yep. I agree. I fully agree. I just, for me, I see the human aspect of it. I see, like.
Keep bringing, folks. We'll get to you in a second. But I see your lines are right, lighting up.
When I hear Saquon talk, I don't see him as a guy who's like, like an arrogant guy. He's not. He's a very confident guy.
And he wants to play.
He definitely wants to play. And he loves New York. He loves this organization. He loves the coaches here. He loves the team, loves his teammates. He wants to play. But I think that human aspect of feeling appreciated and feeling respected has something to do with him actually playing this year. And it's not going to be, look, I hope they get it done, but I don't think it's non-existent that he's not going to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they will get it done, by the way, on July 17th.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's David from Michigan, Paul.
Hey, David. How's it going?
Dave?
I'm good. Hey, Jonathan, I just want to say before I ask my question that you've been a wonderful addition to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you much.
I love listening to your analysis and the insider perspective you give as a player. It's just fabulous.
Thank you, man. Much appreciated, Dave.
So, guys, on Saquon, listen, I like Saquon as a player. I think, last year was wonderful. But this is a business. And you don't pay players, you shouldn't pay players based on what they did. Because he already got paid for that. He's been making very good money as a number 2 or 3 overall, whatever he was. But what he's got to realize is that Joe Shane is a really smart, excellent general manager who, in this offseason, has created a roster where Saquon is not going to have to carry nearly as much load Daniel's got so many offensive options. So that, let's say, for example, we signed Saquon, and, God forbid, you went down in week 3. I would not write the season off at all because of all of the other weapons, all of the other players that have been assembled. His value to this team is actually less than what it was last year. And so I want him on the team. I think he's a terrific player on and off the field. But he's got to wake up that to not only what the team has done, but also where his value is within the league, as what Jonathan said, is a middle-aged running back who may be peaking right now, or maybe he peaked last year. So anyway, that's just what I want to say. I like the guy as a player, but I don't want a disgruntled diva running back on this team next year if that's what he's going to be.
No, I don't think that's in his character.
I don't think so either.
No. When he shows up, he's going to be a giant.
I agree 100%. Yeah. I agree 100%.
Well, I hope so.
Dave, thank you for the call, David. I got to run.
Ability and character, don't come along every day.
I got you.
True.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Stay well.
Look, I don't mind an angry Saquon. I don't mind that. I don't mind him coming in here angry trying to prove a point. Because he's not going to do it with his attitude around the building. He's going to do it on the field.
Let's grab this other call, and we can revisit that if you like. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's your name and where are you calling from? Hello?
Yeah, John from North Babylon. How you doing, guys?
Hey, John, good to talk to you, but please turn your computer down so we can take your phone call.
Just took care of it.
Thank you.
Guys, you guys talking about Sorry?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You guys are talking about Saquon. I'm wondering a couple of things. Did I hear one of you gentlemen say that he was offered $14 a year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Allegedly.
Everything
hasn't come to an agreement yet, which is amazing
everything.
To me.
Hold on. Everything is alleged. Everything's reported.
I know.
None of us are in that room, and none of us have any specifics as to what's going on. So I'll be honest with you. That's why I don't like to give the numbers because I don't believe what other people tell me. I need to be in the room, and then I'll believe it.
And real quick, before you make your real point, that per year average kind of doesn't really mean anything if they backload it, which most contracts are backloaded.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's say he's scheduled to make $20 million in 2026. He's not going to see that. He's not going to see it. The only thing you could really go off of is that guaranteed money. That's what you could really go off of. So we never heard any indications of that, alleged indications of that. We've only heard the per year numbers, like I said, heard and alleged, because nothing's confirmed.
Let me just say this about Barkley. And again, you can chime in on this, Jonathan. Caller, bear with me a second. I don't think there's anybody out there, and I mean anybody with any credibility at all, that would tell you Saquon Barkley is not one of the top 5 running backs in the National Football League.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Since he came in as his rookie year.
Top 5. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can rank him higher. And I'm not saying I'm putting him 5th, but I'm saying he's got to be in the top 5. Even if you don't like him, even if you want to hold his durability against him because he got hurt for a year and a half, you could do that if you like. He's still not going to be lower than top 5.
Yep.
It's impossible to put him lower than top 5.
I agree.
Okay, so to me, to be fair and respectful, any number of value and worth of a deal that puts him in that category, that puts him in the top 5 at his position, is fair and respectful.
Yep.
And makes a whole lot of sense from everybody's angle. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is very hard. I just don't. Now, if him and his people have a certain number in mind, well, that's because they're sticking on a number. If that's, in fact, the way it's going. I'm not going to speculate. I don't know what they have in mind. I'm strictly talking about it from an outsider's perspective. Logic seems pretty simple. If you know where this guy's neighborhood is and you're going to drop him into that neighborhood, well, then everybody should be happy. Jonathan, I don't know how else to explain this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which leads to my question. I listen to you guys. I follow. I watch NFL Channel. I got to say, I love Dave's and I love Joe Shane.
Sure.
I think they absolutely know what they're doing.
Yep.
And they're getting things done. So I trust them. And so if Saquon's not signed yet, my thing is, yeah, but you know what? An offer was put on the table back in November during your bye week, and it was out there, and then it was pulled back, and it's out there again. So I think the ball's in Saquon's court. But having said that, Dalvin Cooks was released a couple of days ago.
He was.
And what's the chances?
No, don't even think about it.
The Giants saying, "Hey,
don't even think about it." Don't even think about it.
The other New York team,
Dalvin
both
Cook's
of the
a top
other
five
New York
running back?
teams.
We know that the best fit for Dalvin Cook, and many people around the league have said Miami's the best fit for him.
Yeah, I heard
because he could really, really do an awful lot for the Dolphins, especially taking pressure off of Tua.
Well, you got. I think the Buffalo, they're solid, but they never really had that explosive, really good, durable 3-down running back since Fred Jackson.
Yeah.
His name just came up on the TV not too long ago.
Now we got to go into cap implications.
The other New York team, the Jets. I think Breece Hall is a great running back, and even Carter. They got good running backs, but they don't have a Dalvin Cook with that career that he's put together over in Minnesota. A lot of people, Saquon and Dalvin Cook, for me, they're very, very similar.
They're in the neighborhood. They're in the
very
same
different
neighborhood.
styles of running backs.
Same neighborhood.
Number output is very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
They're guys that you can give 300 carries to and throw them 50 passes a year.
Yes.
And they're going to have over 1,500 yards because they're that good and that explosive.
I agree.
put them in the same category.
And
but we
both
already
of
got
them-
our Dalvin Cook by Saquon Barkley.
And Cook had an injury in his past also.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they're very comparable.
similar. Mm-hmm.
Here's what I will say, though, about Cook, all right? And I think this is the problem if you're the Jets. And I do think he would be a great fit for them because their backfield is rather unproven because Hall's coming back off the injury, and the rest of the guys in their backfield, you just don't know what you're going to get there. I do think he'd be a great addition for them. The problem is, to sign him, you're not getting him on the cheap for 1 year. He's not going to take that.
No, sir.
He's going to want a multi-year deal.
Which he deserves.
Well, and I agree with that. But the problem is, how does that fit now into the Jets' salary structure based on where they are? I know they've got $26-something million under their cap, which is great. But do you just throw it there? No. If I'm the Jets, I'm actually holding out hope that a good offensive lineman pops free and I can pay good money to an offensive lineman, because if they don't keep Aaron Rodgers healthy, guess what? They're not making the playoffs. Because Wilson isn't
4 games.
Wilson isn't going to make them a playoff team.
No.
He's not. Okay, they got the same problem they had when Vinny Testaverde was there. Vinny busted his Achilles. Ray Lucas had to come in, and that team went right in the toilet. Not that I don't like Ray Lucas, but they were left exposed because their backup quarterback couldn't win enough games to make them a playoff team, and everybody thought that they were going to go that year. The Jets are in the same boat right now. They don't have a legitimate backup quarterback who can make them a playoff team if this guy gets hurt. So God bless him in his dark room. Good for you, Aaron Rodgers. Good luck. Good luck.
He's right about that.
Good luck. Your offensive line isn't going to hold up, and you don't have a concrete running game right now. So good luck to the Jets. All right? So they're better off spending their money on going to get a late offensive lineman and seeing if they can fortify that line before they start committing some bucks to a guy like Dalvin Cook. Anyway.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Change the subject just for a second, and then I'll let you guys. I'll go and I'll let you guys talk. Rumor: Leslie Frazier might join the staff. You guys hearing anything on that?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Interesting.
Well, that's again. You got to understand what you're reading. There are comic books on the shelf at every corner newsstand.
Yeah, for sure.
Have a great day, my man. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah, I don't see any truth into that last statement, especially because Leslie's a defensive coordinator. I don't think he teaches coaches position specific. Wink Martindale is the defensive coordinator for the Giants until Wink Martindale says, I'm not defensive coordinator.
That's very true. That's very true.
He said that, and I believe that.
Is there a possibility, and this happens all the time with veterans who have a very extensive resume, where they might come in, they might visit a camp, and at some point maybe a team says, you know what? It wouldn't hurt to have you on the payroll as a consultant or an analyst, to where that guy gets a small stipend, basically, to be a sounding board for the coaching staff. Like if they get into a predicament where, let's say it's week 7 and they haven't been able to figure out how to stop 3rd and long, the member of the coaching staff, usually the head coach or the coordinator, will pick up the phone and call so-and-so and say, hey, you know what? Look, I've been breaking my butt, staying up 36 hours a day, okay, trying to figure out how to deal with this. You got any thoughts for me? And that's kind of what happens a lot of times with veteran coaches with good resumes.
Guys like that.
That's what will happen. They'll be called consultants or analysts. And really all it means is that they're a phone-a-friend guy.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're a phone-a-friend guy, so that when you get into a real rough spot, you can phone a friend and say, yeah, you got a little something for me maybe.
Yep.
That's what it's about. Could Leslie Frazier be one of those? It's possible.
Yep.
But I don't see him getting hired as a coach.
Yeah, me neither. And the role that you're talking about, I definitely see him fitting in that role. He has valuable experience at defensive coordinator. He's coached a lot of great defenses.
And the guy will do that to buy time until he gets his next job.
Yeah, for sure. Because you stay active, you stay in football.
Yes.
You're not going to take a year off. You stay around the game. But I remember I played for the Bill Parcells lineage. I played for Sean Payton. I played for Tom Coughlin. And then I also played for Bill Belichick.
Yes, you did.
So I had 3 guys that I knew would call Bill Parcells. They called him. They would take walks with him. They would call him every week. They had calls with Bill Parcells. He's the ultimate soundboard for sure.
Yes, sir.
He's the GOAT of the soundboard that you put out there, the consultant of a franchise. But it's always good to have guys like that. And look, the Giants, they're going to do everything they can to win. And if that's hiring Leslie Frazier as a consultant, they're going to do it. So even if there's no truth into that, I don't see them trying to figure out something outside the box to get in everything they can possible to help these guys win games this year.
Again, he could be a phone-a-friend guy.
Yes.
That could happen down the road.
But I don't see him being no more than that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no more than that.
I would be very surprised.
Right.
Very, very surprised. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. We have lines open. If you call while we're in conversation, we'll cut it short and get to the phone call. In the meantime, I want to go back to Barkley for a second. The one thing that Lance and I say a lot on this program is that don't hold positional value, that is running back, to a guy like Barkley. You don't hold a guy like Henry to that. Kamara, Cook, and McCaffrey. Those guys in that 5-level neighborhood, put them in whatever order you choose. I don't care. Those guys are weapons. They're not running backs.
Right.
They're offensive weapons.
Yep.
They are so diverse. They are such important, critical headache players to your overall scheme and philosophy. They cause the other team's defense to make so many adjustments and to worry about so many things. Okay? They're headache players. It's wrong to just pigeon them as, oh, he's a running back. I mean, I'm sorry. Pacheco did great things out of Rutgers. Went to Kansas City and helped them win a Super Bowl. That's great.
He became a weapon.
That's great. He started to become that. Let's see.
He's young. He's
shown some flashes.
He's getting there.
He's shown some flashes to get in there. But right now, he's a running back.
Right.
Okay,
right.
he's starting to look like he could be a weapon.
Yep.
Now, when you are a weapon and not a running back, you do have a right to say, hey, you know what? It's not just about my pure stats, but it's what I bring in terms of how the other team has to worry about me and play our team differently that adds to the player's value.
Yep, and if they come off the field or don't come off the field. Saquon is a guy that early in his career, he didn't stay on the field for all 3 downs because he didn't do as well in pass pro as he did as a receiver or a running back of the football. Now Saquon, you could leave him in for all downs. You could leave him for all 3 downs.
Absolutely, you
can.
And
like you said, he becomes a true weapon on every down, not first and second down. Because even out of the backfield, they could even split Saquon out. He's had some great receiving, big-time catches down the field when he was lined up outside of the backfield. So he's definitely that weapon. That's why I was saying the things I was saying about him, because Saquon's not this running back that maybe have 1,000 yards. No, he's going to be a guy, if you give him the ball, he will have over 1,500 yards, all-purpose yards, not just rushing the ball, not just between the tackles, not just outside, in every single way or facet. And if the Giants want to feel freaky and put him at punt returner, he'll score some touchdowns. I don't recommend that happening. But,
no, please don't go there.
But he's that type of guy.
Because our phones are going to totally explode if you say he's got to return kicks. Hello, you're next up, Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, guys, it's Tim in Charleston. How
Hi,
you
Jim.
doing?
We're well. How are you?
Good. So I appreciate your open lines. Give me a chance to call in and on a day I normally don't.
That's
So I
cool.
wanna
We
go
got
to
someone
the
on line,
season.
too. Keep dialing, by the way. We'll get to you right after Jim. Go ahead.
So I want to talk about the season a little bit and just the start of the season. And, I'm glad we finally got an opening game against Dallas that's at home. But, gosh, I think that's such a critical game in the beginning of the season because we have 6 games before Washington and the Jets and the Raiders, etc. And I just think it's critical for us to start at least 3-3. And it's going to be real tough to do if we don't beat Dallas. So I'm like, to me, that game, I'm not saying it's going to determine the success or failure of the season, but it's going to be a milestone in whether the season is an easier progression or a more difficult progression. Obviously, injuries and all that stuff aside. And I'll take your comments off the air. Thanks, guys. Great talking to you.
Appreciate the call. All right, so let's look at the first 6 games. Dallas, then on the road for Arizona and San Francisco, home for Seattle, and then on the road for Miami and Buffalo. Those are the first 6. Now, he's saying you got to have at least 3-3 out of the first 6, and it's going to be hard to get to those 3 wins if you don't beat Dallas. I could understand his viewpoint.
I can too. Yep, especially because you have San Fran with that defense. I don't care who plays quarterback for them. The likeliness of people scoring more than 20 points on them is very low.
It's a short week, too.
It's very
That's
low.
a Thursday night
Right.
game after playing in Arizona.
So you got to call that. That's going to be a tough game.
Yep.
Now, if they find themselves a quarterback early like they did last year, you're going to see that San Francisco team from 2022 return in 2023 because they're a quarterback away. We've seen that from them, right? Seattle, I think they start to figure it out. I think they figured it out last year. I think they have a talented corner. They drafted another talented corner, Geno Smith. He's the guy that turned around and revitalized his career. They still got weapons on the outside. They got a strong running back. That's a hard game.
I like that game much more here than I do in Seattle.
Oh, yeah. Last year, that was a beatdown. That was the first time the Giants, I was like, okay, maybe the Giants aren't as good as we think they are. That was the first time I felt like that last year. That was the first time.
A couple of bad
So
plays
you
on special
expect them to
teams
do well.
destroyed that game.
Tua in Miami is a hard Miami team. That's a hard team to beat. That's a hard team to beat.
They get cooked, too.
And we all know Buffalo. So not to take anything away from Arizona, but they're not as strong as a team. Their roster's not as talented as basically all the other teams on that list. And I think we all know what Dallas is. So every single team has its – I think I see one team in there that right now on paper you can look at and say the Giants are better than them.
You like the
Right
Cardinal
now.
game.
That's it. That's it. But even that, nothing is guaranteed in the NFL.
No,
I've been
nothing.
in so many games where we were the favorites and we lost, or we were a big underdog and we won. So I've been on both sides of that. I'm never going to say the Giants need to win this game. The Giants have to do this, and that. But I do think the Giants need to have success in that first 6 games. I think 3-3 is a good number for them if they could come out of there and have the rest of the 11 games to work off of, and they can be on a positive side of wins in that last 11. I think they can sneak into the playoffs with that record, right? But if they struggle, like you were saying, in the first half of the season, and then, injuries happen, attrition is a thing that we speak about. The Giants,
bye week is late.
The
Week
very
13.
late bye week, and then the second half of the season is loaded with NFC games. I'm looking at them all right now after the bye week. They're all NFC, with 2 of them being the Eagles in the final 3 weeks. So he has a point there. The Giants should come out. They need to come out at least doing well in the first half of the season, because in the back end, we don't know how LA and Green Bay is going to be, and even New Orleans, but we know how the Eagles are going to be. And if all of those teams are playoff caliber teams, you're talking about 5 games in a row to finish the season after a bye week for playoff caliber teams.
Now, one thing I think that was very important for the Giants is that they were able to keep Kafka and Martindale as the coordinators.
Huge.
And I don't want to dispel or disparage McGahee as a special teams coordinator, but we know that Kafka and Martindale had head coach interview opportunities. They did not get them, unfortunately for them. Fortunately for the Giants, though, they get to keep these 2 guys because I truly believe in the continuity, in the fact that being second year in the system might help the Giants get off to a smoother start than what we might otherwise see. Jonathan, I firmly believe this. Again, I've been around this game a long time. September football, it's rocky at best. It's just the level of efficiency and the quality of play is just not where it needs to be. And in reality, like Tom Coughlin always used to say, more games are lost than are won. Well, that's especially true in September.
At that time. Yep.
Because the team that's ragged and rough around the edges in September is going to get off to a really bad start.
Yep. And I'll use Detroit Lions for an example. Detroit Lions, they went, I don't know. I know they were not good. They only won 1 game in the first 7 or 8 games, and they finished with a 7 or 8 game win streak.
They were as good as any team.
Any team at the end of the season in the NFL. So, I don't really put too much onus on that September schedule, but throughout the season, they have to have some type of success early. I feel because of the back half of the season could be very hard to finish with you finishing with the Eagles 2 out of the last 3 weeks. We saw that happen last year. And the Giants needed to win some of those games at the end of the year. They needed to win that Colts game. They had to win that Colts game.
They did.
They needed to win the Commanders game. They had to win that one, and they did. So it was some games that they needed to win. Now, if the Giants handle themselves early in the season, not that you coast, you don't ever coast, but that gives you a little bit of buffer, and you're not really like this at the end of the season. There's not must wins. There was more like we need to win this game to establish ourselves with this seed in the playoffs.
I got news for you. My adjutant knows it's going to be that way right down to the end. Okay? It does. It's already told me. My adjutant has already told me it's going to be cooking very, very, very hot in December and January.
For sure. Oh, I wanted to talk about something that one of the callers talked about earlier.
Okay, go ahead.
He said something about players not getting paid off of what they've done. And I don't agree with that. You know why? Because if you haven't done anything, you don't get paid.
Right.
So you are getting paid off what you've done, but it's more of the potential of what you can do in the future. But it's gauged off of what you've done. Because if Saquon would have been hurt last year and rushed for 500 yards because he only played, 7 games sparingly, Saquon, he might not be a New York Giant right now. He might not even have a deal right now.
I agree with that.
So it does matter what you've done. I mean, that's the indicator, what you've done. Daniel Jones, he was up for his contract. They didn't renew his 5th-year deal. And then now he went out and balled, showed that he wasn't a turnover machine like people thought he was, showed that he can get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. Mm-hmm. That was, that equated into that $160 million contract because of what he's done. Of course, you do it off of potential, but basing potential off doing nothing is non-existent. You have to have done something. You have to have showed the people upstairs that you're capable, if not a great player at that position, so you can get paid.
See, to me, Barkley, again, his rookie season, he was a 2,000-yard all-purpose back.
91 catches.
That's really primo. That's the kind of stuff that Tiki Barber did his last 3 years in the league. Okay, that was Herculean, all right? If you could get at least 1,600 to 1,700 all-purpose yards as a running back in this league, that's what puts you in the upper echelon. That's what puts you up on that top level.
Yep.
Okay? Last year, Barkley had over 1,600 yards, 1,300 rushing, over 300 receiving. And by the way, they didn't use him nearly as much as a receiver as I thought they were going to, especially downfield.
Yep.
He should have had some better numbers there. So I think that was more of a product of the offense than it was his production itself. To me, I think physically, knowing how hard he worked, knowing how well he rehabbed, understanding his drive and the pride that he's got in his game, I see no reason why Barkley can't have 3 or 4 more years of a minimum of 1,600 yards all-purpose from a line of scrimmage. I think that's very, very plausible. And again, we're talking about a guy who he's got goals. He wants to be remembered in this league. He's going to have to do those kinds of things, Jonathan. Otherwise, he's just going to be another good back whose career did not last long enough to make him a great one.
Yeah, I agree. Look, he's a phenomenal person, not just a player, not just a weapon, but he's a phenomenal person, so he'll have some success. I'm hoping that little bit percentage that I presented to you earlier, that little slight chance that he might play, I truly hope that doesn't happen because we're all fans of him here. We all understand how dynamic
Everyone
he
in
is.
the league is a fan of his.
Everybody
You want to
is. You're right.
see a guy in that position play.
Yep, especially when you know he's a good dude.
That's it.
You know he's a great dude. So, look, I'm looking forward to it, and I don't see him having any type of drop-off this year. And if he can stay healthy, I expect his numbers to even go up. Maybe he rushes for 15 and catches 400 out of the backfield, you know?
There's no way to know with the increased offensive weaponry on this team right now exactly where his final numbers are going to be. I know if he plays 17 games, he's going to have a Pro Bowl caliber season again. I'm very confident of that. But where will his numbers actually lie? What will the breakdown be? Well, here's the thing. What if Saquon Barkley, okay, is in the backfield as a lone setback, and because the defense respects him so much, their linebacker or their safety decides he's going to come up into the box a little closer because he wants to stop Saquon, and then Daniel Jones hits Darren Waller on what turns out to be a 70-yard catch-and-run touchdown. Well, that doesn't help Barkley's stats, but it was his presence and his threat and the respect that they have to give him that helped make that play possible.
Yep.
See, that's what a lot of fans don't calculate because they're too busy doing fantasy football.
They're looking at numbers.
And all they care about are the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what an offensive weapon does for you, not just a running back.
Yep. No, I fully agree. That's why when people talk about that running back position being an undervalued position, it's really not when you have a good running back. It's really not. You can't take away from Derrick Henry what he's doing over there in Tennessee. You can't take away the team is better because of one player on offense that's a so-called an undervalued position. You take Derrick Henry away from the Tennessee Titans ain't winning a lot of games.
No.
They're not making the playoffs.
No.
They're not a number one seed in the AFC a few years ago. They're not doing any of those things without Derrick Henry, without a reliable running back that requires 8 people in the box, requires that. Saquon is kind of like that. Saquon is not going to get 400 carries in a year. They're not getting that.
He's not going to do.
He's not getting them that. But when it comes to those first and second down runs, when you have a guy that you know can break it 60, 70 yards, you have to account for that. And you call defenses accordingly. And then that means passing is a second thought when you got to stop the run. Paul, we talked about this time and time again. And this is one thing that I harped on the defense last year. When you walk into a defensive meeting room per week, every single year, every single game, the first thing is stop the run. That's always the number one priority. Mm-hmm. No matter who you're playing. You could be playing Patrick Mahomes. You have to stop the run. Because if you don't stop the run, that makes Patrick Mahomes that much better. And you don't want him better than he already is.
Let me ask you, during your almost decade NFL career, who were the, quote, headache players, as I like to call them, who you knew from the very get-go on Monday during the week coming up, that's a guy who has to be stopped, and he's such an important weapon. He can do so many things to hurt us. Man, we're going to be preoccupied with him all week long and then again on Sunday. Give me a couple of names of those guys.
Well, we saw the little running back list that came up earlier on the television, and I named a couple of names that were just running backs that can get 350 carries in a year. Michael Turner. He was a guy, when you talk about stop the run, he was a guy that was going to break a couple tackles every single play. He was a guy that you had to account for.
Strong thighs.
Strong, big guy, maybe 5'8", 240 pounds. Mm-hmm. Big, huge human being. D'Angelo Williams. He was a guy from Carolina with him and Jonathan Stewart, and then Cam Newton as well, and then Steve Smith. Like that whole kind of group of guys, that three with the running back in there as well. Those are guys that you had to have game plans for all of the plays that incorporated those 4 guys, right? And then I look at Atlanta, Julio Jones. That's a guy who he didn't have the numbers every single year. He was hurt a lot throughout his career, But I remember one game I played against him. He was in Tampa. He had 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. That is Julio Jones. That is his capabilities. He can do stuff like that. He's very, very special. And then I go through different guys that I played with and played against. Darren Sproles. He's a guy you have to account for on first, second, and third down, because on third down he becomes a receiver, right? Reggie Bush, when I played with him, and then also when he was in Miami doing what he was doing. Cam Newton. Who else I say? Gronkowski, when you're playing against the New England Patriots. He's a guy where on third downs, you got to find out where that guy is. Wes Welker, when I was really young, you had to find out where Wes Welker was at.
So what I'm getting at, and you're hearing Jonathan rattle off a whole slew of names here, the bottom line is there are certain players who command so much respect, so much attention. They're not just that individual player in a bubble. They impact everything about how you do to prepare for that game and how you play that game.
Yep.
Because they are bigger than just their position.
And you know what's funny too? Sometimes it's guys that you wouldn't even think of. Like Mike Wallace. He was the blow the top off the covers type of guy.
Right.
He was so good. We had to go back and watch years past film because he was so fast. If that safety thought for 1 second that it was run, Mike Wallace is behind you. He's that fast. And people probably like, who's Mike Wallace? He was number 17 for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that played against him, you knew where Mike Wallace was at because he had that speed. Jalen Hyatt's that type of kid. Maybe not a great route runner, people giving him crap. We don't know any of that quite yet. It's all alleged stuff, right, from college. He's definitely gotten better since he's left college. But he's that type of guy that, like Mike Wallace, if you don't stay back, he will beat you for 30 yards, 40 yards, 60, 70 yards down the field. So every single week, every single team, when you're defense, you got to have your priorities on what you're going to do to stop this team. But you better know who you're playing against. You better know who the weapons are. And every single week for 17 weeks next year, Saquon's on the field and he's healthy, Saquon's target number 1. He is public enemy number 1 for every single team. That's Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. And so that's the bottom line, folks, is that Barkley is such an important component to this offense. It goes beyond just his positional value. So I want people to understand that part of it. But at the same time, when you look at other guys who are in his boat and they are all in a, quote, neighborhood, that to me is where the rationale and the logic has to come into play. And that's why I think Barkley will wind up signing the long-term deal on July 17th, because I think what will happen is both he and the Giants will understand everything that we've just talked about during this show, and they will find a meeting of the minds, and they will find a way to make it happen. Again, if it doesn't, he'll sign the tag and he'll play week 1. I'm not taking any of my hours out of my day thinking about this. When it happens, it happens. I pretty much know how it's going to play out.
No adjective with the Saquon.
I really don't. Yeah. I really don't have it. I know you want to give me a little bit. You want to give me just a little bit. You're like Schmelk. You want to cause me some pain.
I just throw that out there. So when it comes September, I'm like, man, I told y'all, man. I told you it was a possibility.
That's fair. I'm saying it's not a possibility. I'm saying it's not. And I'll be here to eat my words if it happens that way. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. We are here every single weekday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time till 1:30. It's 1 hour of Giants football and Big Blue Kickoff Live. You can always catch this program in its entirety on the Giants Archive, your favorite podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts for two-time Super Bowl champion Jonathan Casillas and a former Giant. I'm Paul Dottino. We'll talk to you again next time, everybody.